Hello, my friends and fellow investors. Today, I would like to talk to you about a stock that I've been having on my watch list for a long while and that I never really got to invest into. But now I think that the chances and risks are perfectly timed, and the market field right now is looking perfectly well for this company. As always, this is no financial advice. Always depend on your own research and never just take this video as regards to how to invest. So make sure to do your own research, check the video description for more information. And I think before we stick to the boring details, we should step right into it. So Mo-Bruk is a company in Poland, and they pretty much focus around waste management. And I think we'll just have a look into what this company does. So their main fields of work are waste processing, neutralization, and recycling. They do all these in Poland, and they have a very dominant share in the market in Poland. So they are likely to earn super profits for many years because of the structural shortage of incineration capacity and, of course, huge waste cleanup problems in Poland. Let's have a look into why else waste management is interesting right now in Poland. So for once, Poland has a huge waste problem. Every year there's a lot of waste produced in Poland, just like with many developed countries in this world. However, in Poland, the majority of, or at least a huge share of the waste is just transported and stored in different places, or sometimes just freeloaded in the wild in Poland. And this, of course, is a huge problem. It's pretty much called landfilling, and this isn't something that's really sustainable in the long run. So that's why Poland needs to take action, and of course, because of EU regulations that force them to take action very soon. So another aspect is the enormous economic growth of Poland. More prosperity usually also leads to more waste produced. So if there's more prosperity in the country, then there's more absolute waste that's being produced by the people, of course, as well. So landfill basically just means a large proportion of the waste is just stored and not really neutralized or recycled at all. That's not really great. Of course, a short-term solution, but it's not good in the long run. And of course, Poland needs to take action. So let's have a look into the statistics. This is just a statistic of recent economical growth of Poland. So this basically shows the economic change per year in regards to the year before. So you can see it has been pretty much very stable around the 4 to 6% mark. Even in 2020, when the corona pandemic was hitting the country quite hard, it was just a slight decrease of 2.5%. And as you can see, 2021, it has already going up quite a bit to 5.67%. So Poland is growing very steadily, and of course such growth also produces a bit of waste. Next thing that we're going to have a look at is the waste volume in kilograms per person in the country. And as you can see, Poland is pretty far off in this statistic. So if you compare it to, like, for example, the Netherlands or Germany, you see that usually it's more in the 600 kilograms per inhabitant region, but with Poland we are more like 300 to 350, and that's of course part of the points that we spoke about earlier. Poland is still catching up in terms of economical growth. Therefore, the inhabitants don't produce as much waste as fully developed countries do. As such, Poland has lots of things to catch up to, which, for example, in terms of prosperity, could also mean more waste being produced. However, I wouldn't fully depend on it. So personally, I see this as a very stable number. I don't expect the number to really go down, but you can see that there's not really much going to happen in the future in terms of reduction, I suppose. So as you can see, absolute numbers will probably stay steady or even grow. So now let's have a look into the municipal waste treatment methods in selected European countries. And I'm going to compare this to Germany as well. So in Germany, the waste that's from cities that's going into the canalization, for example, it's being recycled, or such waste is made to energy. Nothing is just stored somewhere or put in storages or whatever, or just put in somewhere. Everything is either recycled, composted, or made into energy. However, if you compare this to Poland, it's a completely different story. You can see that almost half of the entire municipal waste is being just thrown out in the wild, basically, and not being recycled or produced into energy. And that's, of course, not too great for the country. However, Poland has to make a change in that regard, and it's already been doing so in the past years. There's already a slight change in the statistics today, and the future prospects should change in that regard, as they have to follow certain regulations and have to fulfill that in the next couple of years until 2035. So in order to fulfill that, they have to at least make some incentives for companies to recycle, or however punish those who don't do it. And as such, Mo-Bruk is going to profit greatly from this, as they, of course, are in a huge demand, and of course their profits are going to skyrocket with this as well. That's basically what's happened in the past, and what's continued to happen in the future with the company. But to put this into a further scale is by showing you the revenue history of Mo-Bruk. So as you can see, just by having a look at the revenues alone, we'll get to the earnings later on in this video, but you can see it has been pretty much stably growing by about 40%, and it has done so every single year. The statistics before were from 2018, and as you can see, it worked wonders in terms of revenue as well. So now the price of waste has increased drastically, and Mo-Bruk is going to profit from this, as they can diminish those costs for the companies and make a huge profit off of it. So even though the volume that Mo-Bruk is handling has remained a stable level, the revenues and earnings have grown through the roof, and as such, it's just amazing for the company. So next, let's have a look into the net profit and the net profit margin. The net profit margin is at a very solid 40%, which is just insane if you think about it. For waste management, it's usually much lower, in the single digits, or on the lower 20s maybe, but that's already very high, and 40%, that's amazing. If you just have a look at this and don't know what this company is about, you may think this is like a tech company selling software or something. Hugely impressive, of course, mainly driven by higher revenue that they make with waste. And as such, you can see that this increase in terms of market prices mainly was, of course, driving this revenue and earnings, these revenue and earnings improvements. And of course, in the future, Mo-Bruk can profit off of those eco bombs, basically the landfilling that has happened in the past 20 to 30 years, because all this needs to be cleaned up basically, and Mo-Bruk is the perfect company to do the job. So they'll have lots of profits yet to come, and it's pretty much already being guaranteed through contracts that have been already made in these years. So they already have all the cash basically just laying around waiting for them to step in and sweep out. So let's get to the business segments. So Mo-Bruk pretty much has three important business segments, and those are first, the incineration of industrial and medical waste, second, the solidification and stabilization of waste, and lastly, the production of RDF. For those of you who don't know what RDF is, it's basically just some kind of fuel. Basically, they turn waste into a substitute that can be then be burned to generate energy. So it's basically a very good recycling method for waste to be used as a source of energy for other companies. And now we're going to have a look into the marshal fee that I've been talking about earlier. So the regulation, especially the EU regulation, basically made Poland assume a systematic increase in the marshal fee. So basically, if you would like to store your trash in the wild, or your waste, you just want to load it off, then you have to pay a fee for that. And this fee has been drastically increased over the years, and it's going to be increased in the future as well. So it's getting more and more expensive to just freeload your waste into the wild, basically. And the companies definitely want to avoid that, and in order to do it, they of course need other companies that do the job for them, that reduce, stabilize, or neutralize their waste. And Mo-Bruk does this very well. They don't take that much money for it, and are of course a very great company to do it. And it's of course contributing to the waste storage overall in Poland, and as such an increased demand for waste management services for like example companies like Mo-Bruk. So next thing I would like to have a look is the growth factors. So first of all, of course, we've been talking about it all night long. It's the reduction of the landfill and implementation of a closed loop economy. Basically, what does this mean? Sustainability in the EU is very important, and to fuel that, landfilling should be reduced to zero in the long run. And as such, they have to abide the EU regulation of making municipal waste reusable and recyclable, and that needs to be done to a total reduction of 65% by 2035. And of course, Mo-Bruk is going to play a huge role in order to achieve that. Of course, the recyclable or otherwise recoverable waste, especially municipal waste, will not be allowed to landfill after 2030. So this is not just a dream that's going to happen. It's something that's already been declared, and once it's probated, it needs to be processed by someone, and this is of course going to be largely Mo-Bruk. Okay, we already looked into the statistic of waste generated per capita in Poland compared to other EU countries, so there's of course lots of room to growth. Now I would like to have a look into the business structure. So as you saw here, we already talked about the business segments, but now we're going to have a closer look into both revenues and volumes. So as you can see on the right side, the volumes are pretty much the same over the last 4 to 5 years. Have been growing a little bit, but nothing hugely insane. So just a slight growth in that regard. Hopefully, lots of more room to gain more profits in the future, as there's heavy demand for all these segments, and of course Mo-Bruk can fit in there perfectly. At the same time, the revenues have skyrocketed, of course, because of the higher waste price, and they can just basically milk a cash cow here and gain huge revenues just by those slide parts. So as you can see, the combination of the stabilization, neutralization, and RDF part together is as big as just the incineration part. Overall, the segments are very well balanced. Yeah, of course, the incineration had huge growth, especially from 2020 to 2022, 2021. But if you just think about it and have a look into it, all those segments had huge growth, and this is just mainly driven by, of course, the price per kilogram. So next, I would love to have a look into the cost of this company. Usually I don't have too much of a deep look into this kind of thing when it comes to companies like this. However, I found it very, very interesting, especially if you compare it to like the current growth stocks. So recently I feel that all these growth stocks are taking a huge dump since they can't really be profitable, and in order to make just a single more dollar in terms of revenue, they need to spend $3 worth of ad revenue just to get the attention. And it's quite easy to spend $3 just to make $1 worth of revenue. So of course that's currently heavily looked into these days, and that's why such companies are losing lots of market share recently, basically tanking lots of their company value. And that's of course also driven by higher prices in terms of capital. Completely irrelevant for Mo-Bruk. They have huge capital themselves. They don't really rely on liabilities, and as you can see, in order to make these huge new revenues, they didn't really ramp up their costs and expenses. The expenses, even the total operating expenses, they merely doubled in the course of 4 years. The revenue and the earnings all pretty much doubled every 1.5 years. So basically what you can tell from this is that the profitability is rising. So despite them making crazy high numbers in terms of revenue and earnings, the costs pretty much stayed at a super tiny level. And as you can see, even the outside services, which have been greatly increased, pretty much are at a neglectable level. So none of these values are concerning. Super solid, super great, and very modest costs right here. Next, I would love to have a deeper look into the current valuation. So the PE ratio right now is at about 11. It's the shares went down a bit recently, so as such it should be even lower right now. Earnings per share are at 32 PLN, of course, so that's pretty great. Nothing bad right here. As you can see, the total liabilities went down pretty much every year by a slight decrease, despite the company growing steadily. And of course, the equity capital is so huge that the liabilities dwindle in comparison. So Mo-Bruk could literally just pay off their total liabilities in a heartbeat just by the cash flow. So amazing to see. Love to have a company that doesn't really rely on outside money much. So Mo-Bruk is amazing in this regard, especially if you just have a look into the changes from 2015. So in 2015, you had 80 million PLN in liabilities and 64 in equity capital. And now, just 6 years later, you can see that the liabilities have halved, while the equity capital has risen to such a high degree that the company pretty much just lies in the investors' hands. So that's amazing. Love to see. Of course, I'm in the shareholders' hands, not the investors' hands. So, of course, just an amazing growth, amazing potential in this company. And due to the high profitability, there's little to no risk right now by investing into this stock. So, the dividend policy is also very intriguing to see. So, I rarely see companies that pay out this much in terms of dividends, and they pretty much have a policy where they would like to pay out up to 100% of the net profit, and that's very exciting to see. So they already paid out their dividend for this year, so don't get too excited. However, as you can see, dividends have been steadily growing at an absolutely stunning rate. Pretty much 30 to 60% per year. Huge growth, and of course a very nice outlook for the next couple of years. So right now the dividends are pretty much 10% of the stock value. So that alone would be a great payout. So if you were just to hold the stock, and let's just say the stock price remains stable over the next years with the same revenue and the same earnings, even though that's very unlikely, then you would just make a 10% profit each year just from getting all that nice dividends. But of course, right now it looks like the revenue and the earnings are going to continue to rise at a very great level, and once the stock gets more attention, of course the stock price is going to follow. So from my field of view, very nice to see, very great. In conclusion, stock is profitable, safe business model, unlikely for lots of competitors to enter the market right away. It takes a couple of years to set everything up, waste regulations, etc., etc. So not really easy to enter, and of course hard to persist, especially in the early run. This company already has a very strong footing. They already have huge market shares, and they're going to profit greatly from the future growth of the whole segment. So, of course, it's a beneficiary of the EU directives and the regulations placed by the EU on countries like Poland. So they, of course, receive some sort of subsidies for that as well. But Poland is going to invest greatly into getting rid of all that waste, even if it's just by fueling money into companies that do the job, and that, for example, could be Mo-Bruk. So also great prospects in that regard for Mo-Bruk. So equity ratio, we've talked for a long time about this, look amazing. Just great to see companies like Mo-Bruk having this much of their own capital in the company, and such low liabilities in comparison. So amazing in that regard as well. And overall, in my point of view, a great buy right now. I personally don't have any shares so far, but I'm going to buy into them very, very soon. Going to open my new portfolio for you guys to see, so we can all invest together on this channel, like a starter portfolio, and Mo-Bruk is going to play a significant role in that regard. So hopefully you guys are going to follow it. Tell me, of course, in the comments what you think about that idea and what you think about Mo-Bruk. As always, don't depend on this in terms of financial advice, because this is no financial advice by any means. And of course, let's discuss in the comments what you think about the company and their situation. Of course, also let me know what to have a look into next. I hope you like this kind of style in terms of videos as well. It's a bit different to those that I've been previously doing. Anyway, that's it for the video. Goodbye, guys.